Bespoke point charts, a rotated waffle chart. And this is what it looks like. As you can see, this is very similar to the waffle chart we created earlier. However, we've rotated this and the numbers or the colors are coming from the top. The key difference is that we are manually going to position each of the points and show you a different way of creating bespoke data visualizations in Tableau. So with that said, let's open up Tableau desktop. So let's start by loading in our super raw data set. Let's click on Microsoft Excel, double click Superstore. Let's take orders and drag that into our query panel. Beautiful. Let's go to our worksheet 1. Now we are going to build this using Data Densification. So let's right click on Ship Mode. Let's create our path object. We're going to call this path. If and only if ship mode is equal to first class, then 1 else 100. Nice and simple. Now we're going to create our index function. Just a simple straight index. Nice again, nice and simple. I want us to right click on path, go to create, and we're going to create our path bin object. And we are going to give the value of 1. So far, this is exactly the same as the actual waffle chart. So let's do this now. Let's take index and put that onto columns. Perfectly fine for now. Let's take path bin and drop that onto rows. Right click, ensure that show missing values is there. And now I want to bring this onto detail. I want us to right click on index, go to compute using, and select path bin. It looks a bit strange, but now watch this. Change the mark type to circle. Now we have all of the circles that we need. However, we need to adjust this. We are going to position these individually. And this will take a little bit of time, but the key is to show you the technique, show you how it works, because then you can apply this to your other data visualizations. So let's create a new calculated field, and I am going to call this rows. Let's move this to the side. Actually, let me just open up the panel as well so we can see. Initially, I'm going to just put index in here and click OK. Let's put rows into the row now. As you can see, we have this beautiful shape. I want us to double click on rows and reverse. So you can see it's getting there slowly. We have our points. I'm now going to position these into a diamond. How am I going to do this? By editing the rows, and I'm going to do this in front of you now. So we are going to say if index, i.e. the table calculation, is equal to 1, then 1. Nice and simple. Yes? Else if index is less than or equal to 3, then I'm going to put these items into the second row. And we can repeat this. So let's just copy and paste that. If that is equal to 6, then I want the third row. I'm just going to end it for now, just so you can see what's going on. So you can see we're positioning this. The first row would have 1 item, the second row would have 2, the third would have 3. Let's complete this together. It might take a little bit of time and it might feel a bit redundant, but let's just do this. And we can keep on doing this. So that should now give us our 4th dot. We want to go so that we have 10 dots in the middle row. We'll just follow along slowly. I'm going to keep going, and again the workbook will be made available to you, so you could always open up the workbook and copy the calculation yourself. However, I think it's good to be disciplined and good to keep on just building, chugging along with me. So this will take a few moments, but don't worry, we will get there very shortly. I did try to actually create a formula to do this dynamically, but so far I've actually been unsuccessful, believe it or not. So if any of you have an idea how this can be done in a dynamic fashion, that would be fantastic. Let's see what this looks like so far. As you can see, we're building our points nice and steadily. And remember, once you've built this once, you can always copy this and reuse this again and again. This is also a very prime example of manually positioning. This is why I wanted to include this in this course, is so that you could see if you want to create something super bespoke, then you don't need to work out the mathematical formula. You can actually manually position. You can also create a secondary data source to hold this information in, and at which time you can actually just leverage that. So let's do else 19. So if we see this here, this should now cover all of our points, and as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3 in the middle. We should have 10 points there, and then we have 9. So we created our points. Let's click OK. The next thing we have to do now is to create our columns. So I'm going to create a field called columns. I'm just going to leave index in there for now, and I'm going to bring this to the right of index. So right now there's nothing really special here, almost nothing to see. But now I'm going to edit this, and what I actually want to do is shift these backwards so that it makes up our beautiful diamond. So very similar to what we previously did, we're going to say if rows. So if it's the first row, then leave as index, that's fine. Else if it's our second row, then I want to say index minus. So let's just end this for now and see what we get. As you can see, we have our index 1. We also have our 2 points. What do we do then is that we will continually build this out. Oops, sorry, if rows is equal, so if it's the third row, how much do we actually have to shift back? We can also look at our visualization here. We can see what the point is, what the number is, and we can shift this. So we want to shift this by, I believe, 4. You can see it's slowly building. Oops, I'm going to copy this. If the row is equal to 4, we are going to shift it back by 7.5. And again, we are going to keep on pursuing this line of thinking, but what I want you to do is to think about what possible variations can you create. Are there any other shapes where this will be possible? You don't just need to stick with the diamond that I've given you. You could pick other additional shapes as well. And I have built some amazing shapes based on this technique. Again, the math to actually get this to automate, I haven't been able to achieve. However, by manually doing this, I have produced this data visualization. And by the way, this is not a piece of rocket science. It just takes a little time for the initial setup, Once you have the setup complete, it's pretty automatic. You could apply this again and again and again. So we're almost to the end. We are getting there very shortly. Remember, we only have a certain number of rows. So now that we have row 10, that's our biggest row with 10 different items. And now we're going to shrink this slowly. Hopefully you can see it all coming together nice and simple. And more importantly, with a sense of finality. Because as I said, once you've done it once, you will never need to type this out again, which is absolutely awesome. But I think doing it once is important for everyone, just so you know how it can be done. We're in row number 15 now. We only need to go to 18, so that's pretty awesome. We're getting right there to the end. And as you can see, by having it side by side, I can actually literally see it building up slowly. In case you're asking, I'm not doing the subtractions in my head, I do have it written out. But initially when I built this, yep, I had to actually go through and do the math, think about how much I have to subtract. But once you get it done once, it's nice and easy. So how does that feel? So you can see now we have our diamond. I'm going to remove the index because I don't need that anymore. And here we go. Your point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It keeps on going. So now we are going to continually build this out. However, let's start by taking the region and bring it into columns so you can see it can easily be applied elsewhere. We don't need rows anymore, so we don't need the header. Let's hide the header. Same as the columns. Let's hide that. Let's hide the region label at the top. You can see it's looking pretty good at the moment. Also, as it's a diamond, instead of circle, let's change this to shape. Let's click on the shape mark and let's select the diamond. Now it really looks like a waffle, doesn't it? So as we've done in previous exercises, we've built our frame. Now I want us to focus on getting our data from our data source and applying it here. So that's what we are going to do now. Let's create our calculations. So a new calculated field. Let's call this TC cells. Again, we have to use Windows calculations because we're using data densification. We need to make sure that our values are accessible. We are going to create a TC total cells using the same formula, but again, we will adjust the computation later. And now we're going to create a TC percentage, which is the amount of cells divided by the total cells. That's the percentage of total. And lastly, we are going to create our TC color as we've done in previous tutorials. And in this, we are going to say if index divided by the total number of indexes here. We could actually just say 100 to be honest, but let's make it somewhat dynamic. If that's less than percentage, then we are going to put window max region, else we are going to make this look gray. So yes, we can replace this by 100 since we have 100 points. We're comparing this to the percentage. Let's click OK. Now let's take the color and drop that onto the color mark. Let's right click on this fill. Let's bring into the equation path bin. Not quite there yet, But let's right click on the table calculation and let's edit this. The key thing is that TC cells, the sales calculation, total sales need to be different. So I'm going to adjust this. And here we have it. Instead of restarting every region, it's now taking the value for the whole table. Nice and easy. So now that we have this, we can double click on the gray and assign that a color. Here we have it. The last thing, as with the regular waffle chart, when you're building a waffle, I don't want my end users to have to count how many are colored. I want them to see the value. So let's take TC percentage and drop it on top. Let's right click and turn this to discrete. Right click on the value. Actually, let's right click on the percentage above. Go to format. Let's make this nice and bold. Let's make this a little bit bigger. And let's turn this into a percentage. Nice and easy. The last thing I want to do is format. As always, I like to remove everything just for prosperity. It's a habit. I think it came from the fact I used to remove everything when I did not know what the individual things were. And now I just keep on doing it. Everyone has their quirks, right? Let's remove the rows and let's make the column dividers dashes. I don't really need to see the legend anymore. And let's call this my rotated waffle chart. And there we have it. As with our previous exercises, we've built the grid. Once we've built the grid, we applied our data and applied it to the coloring. So now you have this beautiful bespoke data visualization. The last step, I guess, is if we drag order date onto filters. Let's filter by year, 2020. And just because I like to have fun, let's click on format and enable animations. Let's slow it down a little bit. Let's go for 2 seconds. I very rarely get a chance to do that. Show filter. And now I'm going to adjust the filter so that it's a single value list. Let's present. And there you have it. Now the key thing here is that you can play with your shapes if you want to. You can go back to circles. Let's adjust the size. You can select crosses. And my personal favorite is the following. A filled cross, bit bold, bit dark, but then if you increase the size, this is a real waffle chart, or at least a patchwork. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed the idea of manually positioning your points using data densification to create this wonderful effect. In any case, I hope you had fun. I hope you've learned. If you need to, revisit the lesson. Otherwise, see you in the next tutorial.